Hey everybody, how's it going? Todd Patrick with you again with KBBT. We are interviewing the Elite Eight anglers in the May bracket, and we have the privilege to talk to Mr. Doug Wilson out of Winter Haven, Florida. Doug has gone through four anglers to get this far. He came from one of 128, and now he is one of the remaining eight in the KBBT May bracket Elite Eight. So we are going to get to know Doug. We're going to talk with him, have a good time, and hopefully you guys enjoy this interview as much as we get to. It's our privilege to be able to have anglers like Doug, and we've got several other interviews that we got to do. We're going to get all eight out to you guys, so stay tuned for those. But this one, we're talking to Doug Wilson out of Winter Haven, Florida. Doug has gone through Jason Denise out of Florida, and that was round one. Doug was able to put up 98 inches. Then John Fox out of Florida with 93.75 round two. Round three went through Mr. William Brewer out of Virginia. And Doug ran into a rough day on the water, but it was able to survive. And that's part of this 1v1 format. You don't always got to put up the biggest bag to advance. You only got to beat your own person that you're facing that day. It's angler versus angler. And Doug was able to win that contest by 6.25 inches over William Brewer, who only had the 52 inches. So Doug had 58.25 in round three. But, you know, sometimes to get this far, it takes a little bit of luck. But you always find that the good anglers always make it through. And we're left with arguably the eight best anglers that were in this bracket. And it's been dandy for those of you that have been following us, or those of you that are just tuning into what we got going on here. Doug Wilson is a hammer in Florida, and it's been a treat to have him. In round number four, which was the round of 16, he faced an angler out of Tennessee, and Mr. Dustin Arms was able to advance with an 88.25 inch bag. Doug's total, his average doesn't sound as good as maybe Conrad Benetti's and guys like this, but Doug's here for a reason. Doug's on some good body of water in Florida, and it's not out of the possibility for him to throw up 100 inches on any day he goes out. So we'll talk to Doug about that. But Doug's average so far through the tournament is 84.56 inches, and I'm sure he's looking to improve that. Thanks for hanging out with us, Doug. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, no, real good, real good. Good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, and out of Winter Haven, Florida. Let's get to know you a little bit. Some people that don't know you, that are watching for the first time, we know you got a Canadian heritage or Canadian background, and maybe you can get into that. Tell us a little bit about maybe what you do, what you did for a living, if you're retired, married, wife, kids, anything like that, man. Just have the floor. Tell us a little bit about you outside of fishing.
Yeah, no, outside of fishing, we ended up down here. My wife got transferred down to Florida in 2000
Okay.
to manage Canada. I work oil and gas, so doesn't really. I'm kind of out in the field for long stretches of time. When I worked up in Canada to go and work for 4 or 5, 6 months, pretty much straight without days off, that's pretty much standard fare for oil and gas. If you went home, somebody took your job. So I just kind of hung out, and then I'd fly back and forth because a lot of the tours out of the bush were pretty much as far as the plane flight to come down here to Florida. So it didn't really matter a whole lot. We kind of got settled in down here. My wife really enjoys it, so this is where we hang our hat now. I've been working up in the Northeast United States here for the last, I guess, since about 2009 or 10. Can't really remember. It all kind of runs together. But when the shale gas opened up in the Northeast, logistics are obviously a whole lot better. But the price of natural gas is down right now, and that's kind of typical of oil and gas. We all end up in front of the TV set about the same time. Rather than hanging around the TV set, I throw the kayak in the water and we go fishing. So that's how I kind of fill my time in.
Awesome, Doug. So we get to know a little background from Canada. What part of Canada were you from?
Yeah, out west, Alberta. I mean, I worked pretty much all the western provinces: British
Mhm.
Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Lived in Alberta for a long time. Not a bass in Alberta. To be honest with you, I was totally flustered when I got down here. I'm kind of used to catching walleye and pike and lake trout. Look for a little rocky ledge, and away you go.
There you go.
No rocky ledges here in Florida. You get just these soup bowls, and I mean, honestly, I couldn't figure out that a fish should hang around in 2 feet or 6 inches of water. Just wouldn't go into that stuff. I'm looking for the 10-foot drop off. So it took me a little bit to get acclimatized down here. I had a neighbor kind of laughed at me a fair little bit and finally took me out. He'd grown up down here, born and bred, and he took me out, took a little pity on me, and kind of showed me the ropes. So took off from there.
So coming from Canada and up north to get down to Florida, where some of the biggest bass in the country arguably are, what a blessing and what a treat that ended up being, right?
Again, I didn't even realize it at the time. We really didn't. I mean, freshwater fishing was a little bit. We go out to St. Johns River. Most of our water down here, it gets beat up pretty bad, like it does anywhere else in the country. It's like anything. We've got some pretty special fisheries around where the FWC's got in and managed these areas, done a really good job with them. But our normal lakes are normal lakes. There's the odd big fish in them. Most of them get taken home, put in the freezer, unfortunately. We live off a lake that's three doors down the street. Probably biggest fish out of there shy of 20. Just the way it is. And it's probably bigger than most water we fish. Winter Haven chain. I don't know, there's probably 10 or 15 lakes all chained up together on the south end, another 10 or 15 on the north end. And again, I mean, you can catch some decent fish out there, but it's a normal fishery. If you catch a 22, 23, that's a good day. You may have trouble putting the other four together. But we've got some really special fisheries down here. And a guy, you kind of get them figured out after a while. I almost do like Canadian ice fishing down here. I punch the hell out of these mats. And really, to me, that's like ice fishing. You just drop your bait down through the hole and start working it. And pretty soon you're going to get hammered. So that's the game I played to the largest extent on the grassy lakes. And then the other lakes, I mean, we kind of flip up in the brush. That took a little bit still is taking a fair little bit of getting used to. But that's what I kind of like doing, flipping up into the brush and pounding the mats.
So we've got to know you a little bit on, where you came from, what you've done for a living or do for a living, what got you down to Florida. We can transition a little over to maybe, you got any other hobbies that you do outside of fishing, or is just fishing it? And if so, what are the hobbies that you do enjoy other than fishing?
I build all my own rods. Been doing that now for a little while. So pretty much now, I don't think. I mean, I've still got a few factory built rods hanging around. They're always nice to have just to look at guide spacing and feel how you're doing on your own builds. But I've been doing that the last couple years now. Kind of an expensive hobby. And then again, when I work, I mean, our schedules are usually 3 weeks on, 10 days off kind of thing. Got a day of travel up and a day of travel back. So we get about a week off. Not a lot of time for anything much other than I'll get out 3 or 4 times in the kayak. And that's really, to be honest with you, there just isn't time for a whole lot more hobbies than that. Okay. I mean, rods take a fair little bit of time to put together. Kind of think you're mostly just figuring out, the concept on how you want to build them. Right. And that's the time-consuming part of that. Actually, building them is actually pretty quick. But
so let's get a little bit into your fishing background, if we could. So obviously, everybody starts fishing sometime, somewhere to get to where you are. What got you into fishing, just in general? We'll get to the kayak part later. What got you into fishing? Just where did your love and passion, and what did you start fishing for before bass, if anything?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, started on bass. Lake
Okay.
Ontario. We had a couple of lived in just outside of Toronto. We had a couple of nice creeks that ran up and down. So that's kind of, me and a buddy used to bicycle down to the creek, and I mean we didn't had no idea what we were doing, but eventually we learned they like to eat crayfish, and so
Okay.
we kind of got messing around a little bit. So that's how it got started. Then they stocked up the Great Lakes with a bunch of salmon, and of course that's just a absolutely phenomenal fishery. Was just actually went through looking at some pictures of a buddy of mine today.
Yes, I'm not allowed to be frivolous.
Back at
It's going to be a treat, and it's been our treat here at KBBT to have you, Eric, fish with us and to show
time. When I worked up in Canada to go and work for 4 or 5, 6 months, pretty much.
All right, so we're back. You were talking a little bit about, some Lake Erie fishing, some steelhead fishing with a buddy, things like that. So what other fisheries have you been to? What are your favorite fisheries, and what other types of species of fish do you like to fish for?
Well, I mean, always like walleye. I mean, that was always a lot of fun. Lake trout, maybe not so much. They don't really put up a heck of a fight, but salmon are. I mean, that's probably got to be almost the best fish on earth. They're big, they're strong, they're very acrobatic in the water. Just a lot of fun to catch. And when the runs get going, I mean, I can kind of remember, and this goes back probably 25 years now. Standing on the bank of the river, cast after cast. Every cast you'd catch a fish. Again, we're talking about a guy, in his late 30s, and my arms were just killing me after
Oh, yeah.
about 12 fish in a row. I mean, those things, they'll battle you for 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, I was
That's awesome.
absolutely wore out. But yeah, they are the coolest fish on earth, I think. Bass get pretty aerial as well. It's always nice to go on a kayak sleigh ride, without a doubt. You don't get them very often, but man, they are a lot of fun when you do get them.
Oh yeah, when you get that hook set and they like to keep diving or pulling, that's always a fun ride. How about the times where you hook into a catfish and you think you got a nice sized bass that wants to keep diving?
Yeah, that's that. We get bowfin here, not so
Oh,
much.
bowfin.
And again, don't hook up a lot with catfish. Maybe once or twice down here, but the bowfin, and they get really big. I mean, it's not unusual. I mean, the normal size of them probably is 5 to 12 pounds. So they get to be big, big fish. And you're always thinking, because you're catching where you're fishing for bass, and even when they'll come out of the water and stick that big old mouth at you, and you go, "Wow, I got a big bass." Until they get a little closer to the kayak, and then, oh wow, kind of a disappointment. But they are fun to catch. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think Brad kind of was talking about that this weekend. He went up and fished a little area and needed a 24, and he caught himself a 24-inch bowfin. So yeah, they're a lot of fun, but they're kind of disappointing too, because you think you absolutely have this beast of a bass on.
Yeah, and then up north too, you hook into something and it gives you a good fight, and then you find out it's a pike or a gar or something like that, and that's a disappointment as well. But the fight's always fun, regardless of the fish, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
All right, Doug. So we've got to know, where you kind of started fishing, what you kind of started fishing for, where you came from. Let's get into kayak fishing. What drove your passion, or what started your passion to get into kayak fishing, and maybe what was your first kayak, and how did all that start?
Well, interestingly enough, we had a 22-foot bay boat, real nice boat. Bought it brand new in 06. Did a little intercoastal stuff with it. We'd kind of chase around maybe St. John's River every once in a while. Mostly the intercoastal, redfish, sea trout, that kind of thing. Had a lot of fun with that. We moved down to Winter Haven from where we were at. So the intercoastal was a little further away, maybe, another 15 or 20-minute drive. And then we had this chain of lakes in our backyard. And we got into a drought similar to what we're in now, where the water probably dropped 4 or 5 feet down. And all our chain of lakes, the little canals that connect them, got so low it couldn't get the big boat through. So all you're really doing is fishing this one little, maybe 80, 100-acre lake, with a great big 22-foot bay boat. Not a lot of fun in a day. My wife kind of mentioned to me they made these pedal kayaks. So we went over to the local dealer, took us out to a lake, kind of played around in a Hobie Outback. It was the first kayak I had. So we took it out, loved it. And it probably was just a couple of years after that. Like I say, the neighbor kind of started teaching me a little bit about how to catch a bass. And of course, I worked up north a fair little bit in northern Canada. So we always had a little 12-foot aluminum, with not much horsepower on it, maybe, a 4-horse Johnson or something. So you never went very fast, but you had to cover all the water. And that kind of brought me back to those days when you had to cover the water and really learn every inch of it, or you were just you were going to waste your day. So I started to enjoy the heck out of that. Your hands were free. You could pedal around. They were easy to maneuver, pretty stable all in all. I just loved the heck out of it. Sold the bay boat probably, 2-3 years after that, and I don't miss it one bit. Never own another power boat as long as I live, to be honest with you. Just not going to happen.
Yes, so it sounds like your passion has been overtaken by a kayak. Are you still in the Hobie Outback?
Yeah, I've still got an Outback. I've got 2 PAs and an Outback. And the Outback, still chase around with that when you get out to somewhere like Fellsmere, where the grass starts to get really heavy. Those PAs are kind of hard to paddle around for an old guy like me anymore.
Right.
The Outback's a whole lot lighter, so I can kind of chug-a-lug around in that a whole lot quicker. Not a real big guy on trolling motors. Maybe one of these days I'll have to break down and get one, but I still feel pretty good. So I'm gonna keep knocking it down with the old pedal craft and the paddling.
Nice. So I'm still getting to know you, obviously, Doug. I've kind of come to know you with the first KBBT bracket back in April,
Right.
and then now in May, to where you've made it here to the Elite Eight. Do you fish any live events, or are you more of an online guy? Do you know, and what intrigued you to start fishing the KBBT?
Well, again, I saw it kind of posted on KBN. Thought, hey, that looks like a really cool format. The onlines, and again, it kind of goes back a long ways. I mean, I kind of remember Brad Case and I battled it out, and this is probably at least 4 years ago. Kind of, we chuckled about it the other day. We tied for Angler of the Year in the Badass Bass thing, and I guess that's got to be 4 or 5 years ago now. And we battled hard. I mean, it came down, like I said, we tied. And it was getting fairly late in the year, so we just split it. It just, like Brad said, I don't want to fish anymore. It's getting cold over here in Mississippi, and I'm done. So we just kind of said, okay, fair enough, we'll just split it. And that's how that came down. But,
was those onlines, or were those live?
It was, no, that was an online. Again, unfortunately, again, because of the schedule that I work, a lot of times I can't make a live event. I haven't really done very well in them, and I always kind of question myself as to why. And again, anybody that goes out and catches fish, if you're not up at the top of the board, you're wondering why. Well, I mean, I learned to fish online. When you learn to fish online, you learn to target big fish. So if I get on a school of small fish, the only thing runs through my head is, you're small enough, what I'm looking for, to eat you for dinner. Mm-hmm. So she ain't here, otherwise you wouldn't be eating. So I keep moving on. Whereas, like I said, a lot of guys will just hang around. I've got lots of buddies that just love getting on schoolies, and they'll sit there, pound them all day. I enjoy, getting on schoolies every once in a while, but 20 minutes and I'm done. I got to get out of there and start looking for something a little bigger, because I know they're there and they are hard to catch. But it's not conducive with a live event. That strategy does not work with a live event. Now, it's even like this deal here. I don't know what I'm doing. I can go out on a weekday. And I don't think there's hardly been a weekday out on Fellsmere through the whole course of KBBT here that I did not put up over 100 inches every time I went out on a weekday. Hit the weekend, I have not broke into the hundreds on the weekends. Insane. I mean, I don't understand.
Do you think that maybe with the added dynamic of you have to perform in this amount of time, that maybe you fish a little faster, or yes, do you think that maybe that could affect your presentation to the fish, which could result in maybe less potential big bass?
Yeah, I think there's a number of issues that come with it. I mean, part of it's just the reality. More guys fish on the weekend, so the fish are more highly pressured. You've got a little competition for your areas. Brad talked about it here out on Kenensville. I mean, it's not a big lake. It's 4 square miles, so it's not by any stretch of the imagination is it a big lake. You get 6 guys that kind of swamp you in an area. I was fortunate enough that I didn't get those 6 guys. But still didn't fish that well anyway. And I'm not going to blame it on, having a bunch of guys. Really what it is, it's between a guy's ears at the end of the day. I pick the pace up. I get, again, I'm going to be here by 10 o'clock. I'm going to be there by 11. I'm going to be doing. Whereas sometimes you just got to kind of, when I go out on a weekday, I'm kind of feeling out maybe a new area. And I just I'll kind of poke around with it. It's just a little more relaxed, whereas the crunch thing, and again, it's between a guy's ears, and a guy just kind of got to get himself calmed down a little bit. That's kind of long and short of it. I mean, Saturday here, to be honest with you, caught 3 fish. I lost 2 really good fish in that same mat. They only bit for like 45 minutes. The 3 I did get, I got in 25 minutes. I
Wow.
had several other fish on, but I was so pumped after catching that 22 and 3/4. I mean, I was vibrating. And I mean, like I say, and you see some of the bags I put up, and I mean, I'm vibrating on a 20, and I shouldn't have been. I just should have, hey, okay, get down to business. But you get yourself so wound up, and I'm sure that's what it is. It's between a guy's ears, without a doubt.
Well, and then when you know that you have to perform, and then you're able to catch a nice fish like that, and you know what that could potentially do for you, man, all of that inside your head, man, is it's a good feeling, but it's also like, hey, you need to calm down, and we need to keep fishing here, because one 22-inch fish many times does not move through. You need a good bag, so.
Remember the guy that caught the 25 in the round of 64 to start. I mean, huge fish, and he didn't move on. Couldn't get anything to back it up. I thought that was the day I was having, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mr.
when he was kind of having the same kind of deal. He just couldn't put a bag limit together.
Yeah, when you get to survive with a 58 1/4, you have to make sure that don't happen again, especially the deeper you move into this event. There's 7 other anglers out here that they're confident anglers right now. I've not talked to anybody yet that's not confident. So, moving on, and the potential name of KBBT Rodney Kennan champion award winner next to your name. You've got to play a little bit with your head, but you got to keep it together and just keep on grinding. So, you're going against Mr. Tory Webb this weekend out of Virginia. The guy's been on some smallies, and I think he likes the Susquehanna, the Susky. So we'll have to see how he does versus you. Knowing that you're facing Tory. You have any words that you'd like to say to Tory? Any words of encouragement? Anything you'd like to say? Or
yeah, I mean, I kind of messaged him here a little bit earlier, and I said, our bite we're coming into the summertime bite, and I kind of look back at my numbers, and they start to tail off in June. We saw that, guys up close to 100, over 100 on Kenansville here. We're now down, it's starting to fish like a normal fishery. Flip side of that is you guys up in Virginia, Tory in particular, your bite's just starting to turn on. This is setting up to be a heck of a match. I really don't know that I can, and again, our weather, we can't spend that 10 hours so if you get a nice day up in Virginia where he can spend the whole day out there working on smallies, man, we can get a runt bite going where you can't find a big fish if your life depends on it. And that's really, I kind of look, both Brad and I, neither one of us had a 20 out of Kenansville. That's like 20 hours of fishing on Kenansville. Neither one of us got a 20. Pretty crazy when you look at the numbers that got put up for the 2 months prior to.
Oh yeah.
So
especially with the quality of fishermen between yourself and Brad
have a shot, man? He's got. I'll tell you what, he's got his best opportunity coming up this weekend. And it's not that I'm not going to give it my all, but if that bite's not there, I can't make it be there.
Right.
That's and I mean that was kind of like even on the weekend here. That mat bite has absolutely disappeared. I had to go back to a fluke or a swim bait in the grass, which I do not fish Kenansville. That to me is the 2.5 ounce F-bomb throwing it through the mats. That's what that lake is to me. The little lake that I fished on Saturday, that's a little bit of a mix. It's got some structure. It's got a lot of open water in it. So I got my fish in the mats early, and I'm thinking, man, I'm just going to back off the structure here and kill them. There was zero bite in structure. It just kind of it's just kind of really crazy down here when we get this. We've got, the water came up about 6 inches. The temperature's coming up. The thunderstorms are moving through. The weeds, like I say, having to throw a 2.5 ounce tungsten just to get, and I mean, I'm not even getting it through, but 50% of the time. with a 2.5-ounce tungsten, if that gives you any idea how fast and how thick this stuff grows. Yeah, it's insane.
I was down there in January with the KBF, the DZ the 10, and we were out on Toho and lakes in that area on that chain, and there was tons of grass and pads already in January. Yeah. So can only imagine now.
It doesn't go away unless they spray it. It doesn't go away. And I mean, that was the other thing. They sprayed Kenansville a little bit. I'm not really going to say that was an issue out there because they sprayed the North Canal, which, to be honest with you, I don't fish it anyway. And it's early enough in the game, until it dies and starts to settle on bottom and so on and so forth. There really isn't a problem with the spraying. It's once it starts to decompose, oxygen starts coming out of the water, fish start to relocate a little bit. Of course, the temps are coming up. So there's all kinds of things play into that spraying. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, this is really, I hadn't fished Kenansville, the big lake, hard for 2 years prior to. They sprayed it. It was really good fishing. Put up some awesome numbers. Lots of other guys put up some good numbers. Sprayed it, and it's really taken a couple years to come back. It takes that long. And I mean, maybe it was back quicker, 6 months, but I certainly didn't see anything out there that was worth chasing on a big lake like that. So but right now, like I say, that is not an issue. I probably don't fish Kenansville this weekend looking at the weather report. Unless it changes a whole bunch, I'm going back to Tanarock where I can get off the water in a hurry. And I can get my 5 runts.
Well, and here's something that I've heard about Tanarock. It recently just opened. It's not been open very long, right? No, it was shut down for a while?
No, Tanarock's been open for over 30 years.
No, I mean, was it shut down briefly, though?
Oh, it was shut. Yeah, it was for about 6 weeks. Absolutely, it was.
6 weeks.
Yes.
And I wonder if that let the fish reset a little bit to where, when you go back out there, but it's probably getting pounded enough to where they're...
Yeah, it might have been for the first couple of days out there. I mean, I didn't even really find that. I went and fished a couple lakes where, and again, I've got my list of lakes that I feel that I can get a hundo off of, and obviously not all of them will produce a hundo. And I hit a couple of those lakes, and no, they, and again, right after opening, and no, I just wasn't finding it there. That being said, I still, went out on a weekend, knocked down a 24.75. Nice fish without a doubt. But on the flip side of that, there really wasn't much to go with it. The rest of them were all kind of, the 16-inch Tanarock, that's kind of what you 15, 16s. That's what they are. Every once in a while you get onto a big girl, but it's going to be one a day. And again, that played into a lot of online stuff. Onlines, you only need, and I've told guys this time and time again, one good fish an outing. That's all you have to play. You can go home after you got your one fish. And you've got 5 trips out in a month. You're going to have your 100 and something probably. Hey, you should be competitive. So again, online stuff altogether different than, KBBT, live events. But I mean, I've done okay in live events too. I mean, I won our club championship. Won on some different water locally around here. So, I mean, it's not like I don't fish live events. It's just, like I say, work schedule, 3 weeks on and 8 days off just generally doesn't lend itself to a whole lot of live events.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you've, looked ahead, but the anglers that are left in the event and some hammers. I mean, you got the 2 guys out of Michigan, Jeremy Baker, Eric Poland's, putting up upper 90s consistently. You got Torrey Webb, who you're facing, Conrad Benetti, the returning champion, coming through and just making his march through, which has been absolutely incredible to watch. Silas Garrett out of Texas, a guy that put up 106 inches. Yourself, the 2 guys out of Iowa, Jordan Westerman and Jeremy Brandis. Those guys have shown us that Iowa has some monster bass, obviously with mid 90 bags. But if you get to move on past Torrey, you get to face Conrad, and that will be a Florida chance to go to the championship. So Florida's got 2 opportunities to move on. Have you thought about that, or are you just solely just thinking about moving on
Yeah,
past
I'd lie to you if I said I didn't. I mean, heck, like I said, the water down here's got enough. If I hit a day, even Conrad's going to fall down. I mean, that's kind of bottom line. The other side of it is I haven't found that day. So that's kind of the flip side of it. At least on the weekends, I haven't. But that day is down here without a doubt. And that's the interesting thing with this format as well. If he gets off his game a little bit, my game bumps up, or my bite's where I'm hoping that it is. It's going to be a pretty interesting battle, and it's no different than with Tori. If this bite kind of continues to lay down here, his bite's pretty much about where he's peaking on his bike, and we're falling off on ours. There's nothing to be taken for granted here, whoever you're up against. It just one little slip, one guy grabbing a personal best, and you're done.
Right.
So you just got to go out and do the very best you can, play your game out. How you think your bite's going to go, adjust where necessary, and let the cards fall where they may. I mean, I don't even watch the scoreboard. I'll be honest with you. The only thing I really watch is, okay, what am I if I'm catching enough, what am I calling up? And that's about the only thing I pay attention to. By the time I'm even halfway interested where I'm at, you guys got the scoreboard shut down. So usually don't play until I'm all wrapped up, headed home, and I'll send a message off somebody and they'll let me know how they did. But that's about the only way I find out.
So we went through the remaining anglers. We've talked with you. We got to know you a little better. What would it mean for you to be champion of the May bracket? What would it mean for Doug Wilson to come out on top, to take home that first place trophy, to knock off the field that you would knock off to get there, and take home that big check? What would that mean for you?
Well, I mean, obviously that's, it'd be a heck of an honor without a doubt. I mean, just this last weekend, how hard a guy worked for how little it showed up. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I fell asleep on Saturday night. I didn't even get through the broadcast. Thought I just kind of shut my eyes for 15 minutes at 7:45, and I didn't wake up till 9 o'clock. I just wore out. Sunday wasn't a whole lot better, other than I kind of knew I didn't have to get up at 2 a.m. To get everything all dialed in. On Monday, I could sleep in a little bit, so it was a little bit better that way. But it's a grind.
It is.
Again, like I said, I work oil and gas. We work long days in, and they're all 14-hour days. We don't get cut any slack. When we go up and work, you work 12 hours on site, and you're usually an hour traveling back and forth. So it's a solid 14 hours. So it's not like I'm not used to working long hours. But I'll tell you, I was totally wore out after even just the first day. 3 fish, and I mean, I've never been so tired catching 3 fish as I was on Saturday. And Sunday wasn't a whole lot better.
So if you had that opportunity to have champion next to your name, I mean, does that do anything for you at all, or is it just kind of like, that's pretty cool that I was able to do that? Or is there a deeper meaning at all for you? Is there any validation of anything as an angler for you if you're able to do that?
I don't think so. I mean, again, I do the best that I can.
Yep, that's all you can do.
If the stars align, it's fishing at the end of the day.
Yep.
I mean, I really shouldn't even be here, to be honest with you. With the weekend I just had, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, both those guys should have handed me my tail. But I thought I was fishing a little better the last time around, and I got my tail handed to me. So I don't feel bad about it. But like I said, you get this far down the line, I don't want to be counting my chickens before they hatch by any stretch. Am I good enough to win? I think I'm as good as any of these guys if I get on it. Am I a better all-around angler? No. I mean, there's stuff I've never caught a fish on a damn chatterbait. I mean, that's the honest to goodness truth. I have not.
Same here.
I don't fish with a spinner bait, which, a lot of guys, and I've not even taken the time to fish with a spinner bait. I don't enjoy it. I mean, I kind of I kind of fish the way I like to fish, and if my bite's there, that's great. I'm going to do really well. If my bite's not, I'm going to go to the house.
Fishing your confidence, though, there's something to be said about that. When you're out on the water and you're doing something like you're flipping mats or you're doing whatever you're doing, punching grass, and you're doing what you are confident in doing, you're expecting a bite every time that you throw in. And there's something, like you said, between the ears, positive mental attitude is huge out on the water. And to go out there in confidence, and then to catch the fish to build your confidence even more. I always say a confident angler is a dangerous angler. And if you can get your confidence rolling this weekend, brother, ain't nothing going to stop you, in my opinion. So,
yeah, it's like I say, it's, that I kind of thought about it. We've got all this rain. It may not be conducive to Kenansville, but running water, baby. We're going to get some moving water. And while I haven't really ever caught giants at moving water, it's not untypical to go grab, a bag of 18, 19-inch fish that'll sit at the culverts while that water's running through. So, I mean, there's, I'm not feeling bad about, I would have felt bad about going to Tannerock here this last weekend. I didn't really feel that great about the bite. The water's down. And that being said, I got a 24.75 out of there, 3 weeks ago. So, and I'm not feeling confident about that water. I felt more confident about Kenansville. But after the weekend out there, even the Little Lake, that is very reflective. Oftentimes, because I don't like to spend the time grinding away on the big lake, I go to the Little Lake to figure out what the bite looks like on the big lake. That's how close they are. I mean, they're basically connected. So, like I said, I'm not feeling great about the pressure and the bite that's out there in Kenansville. I mean, I could be dead wrong, but I've always caught lots of fish at Tannerock. It's just a matter, like I said, you don't put hundos together there very often, but I've certainly been on them a few times, not this time of year, but every once in a while you'll get that bite rolling, and look out. Like I said, if I get on my bite, don't matter who I'm fishing against, look out. I mean, you could put up Kevin Van Dam against me, I'm sure, some days, and he's going to have a hard time keeping up. Like I say, I'm very focused on the type of kind of fishing that I do and how I fish and where I fish. And when it gets going, it's just one big boomer after another. But awesome. Those days don't always happen, unfortunately. But then it wouldn't be fishing if it did.
Yeah. And yeah, it's not catching, it's fishing, right? But Doug, it's been awesome to get to know you. You're here for a reason, brother. You're in the Elite Eight. I would like to say thank you for the interview. It's been a treat of ours here at KBBT. Lastly, man, you could end this. It's your show. You want to give any shout outs, thank yous, love yous, anything like that to any friends, loved ones, or supporters? And
guys gotta say thank you to his wife. I mean, she puts up with us. Like, I come home after 16 hours on the round trip to Kenansville, and dinner's waiting on the table and a kiss at the door. I mean, I'll tell you what, life doesn't get any better than that. We get to go out and do what we love to do because we have real good women standing behind us. And just a big shout out to my wife, Linda.
Awesome. Linda sounds like an amazing lady, and you're blessed to have her, and I'm sure she's blessed to have you. So, did you have any sponsors or anything else, or anybody else you want to give a shout out to, or is that about it for you?
I'm going to give a shout out to me. Because I'm pretty much just self-sponsored. No, I just do it because I love it. You betcha.
Well, Doug, it's been great. It's been our honor, and it's been awesome to see you. We'll look forward to having you Saturday when you get to go against Mr. Tory Webb to see if you are able to advance to the Final Four of the KBBT May bracket. And
he's peaking, and we're falling off. It's going to be that one's going to be a treat without a doubt. It really is.
Yeah, the cool thing is you get to go home with hardware and a check right now because you made the Elite Eight, and now the check just gets bigger and the trophy gets a little bit gets a little higher number on it or a little lower number on it. So we're rooting for you, Doug. You got a lot of people rooting for you in Florida, and I'm sure all, across wherever. But it's been our treat, and thank you for the interview. We will talk to you Saturday.
Absolutely. You take care, Todd. Really appreciate it.
You as well.